Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Mystery Science Theater 3000, episode 1203, Lords of the Deep. It's been a little bit since I've done a Mystery Science Theater review, just kind of life and all that stuff delayed it, and I kind of wanted to pick it back up again because I do enjoy reviewing stuff, and most of my time is spent making YouTube videos and such. If I know I have to make a review of something, I'll more likely watch it, and I would like to get through this season. So, sorry for the delay, and now I'm going through the rest of them. Now, Lords of the Deep, from what I could find in terms of reviews online from both Pace Magazine and Faith's Take, and lots of other people, Mystery Science Theater in terms of how episodes are viewed and how people like certain episodes, no one has the same favorite episode, I've noticed. There's certain episodes that one person loves and it's their favorite one, and then there's another one that they're like, eh. And Lords of the Deep seems to be the one that gets, other than Mac and Me, which is very popular, this one seems to be hailed most by Misty's, and I was a little surprised by that because while I was watching it, I tried watching it before, I wasn't into it, I stopped it, wait 6 months or something, and just restarted it and watched the whole thing. And I was a little surprised because this feels more like kind of like a mid-season episode where they definitely found their groove more, but you don't really like it as much. I just wasn't as into Lords of the Deep. I just didn't think it was as fun. And I get that the riffs are more down. The host segments were a lot more on, like I remembered. Each of them were very memorable and I thought were very good. But I think the last two movies are very strong. They're things that, like, even though you're like, oh, that's obvious to do Mac and Me. Oh, it's obvious to do an Asylum movie. It almost felt like those movies worked better. Like, in a lot of times I feel like the magic to a Mystery Science Theater episode is not only do they have to be funny, but the movie has to be perfect for them to be funny off of. And it felt like Atlantic Rim and Mac and Me were really great at that. And then Lords of the Deep wasn't. And I don't think Lords of the Deep is as legendarily bad. Now, the problem might be is we just watched two really bad movies that they riffed over. And then you watch this, and it's like, it's still not good, but it's not, like, maybe bad enough. Like, it's the kind of film you, like, drunkenly, jokely watch with your friends, and it might become more because it represents something to you. But I don't think it goes further than that. This was made during a time when Hollywood knew The Abyss, the movie The Abyss, was coming, and they thought it would be a huge hit, and it wasn't. It's still a good movie, but they made tons of rip-off movies in anticipation, just sort of underwater horror kind of things, like Leviathan, The Enemy Beneath, Deep Star 6, and The Rift, and this is sort of Roger Corman's answer to it. And you'd think like, oh, haha, this is going to be the dumbest one. And I haven't seen all those, so maybe. I don't know. I think this was very heavy on pop culture references, which is, of course, Mystery Science Theater. But it didn't seem to work as well. Most of what I laughed at wasn't as invented. It was more of them referencing something, and I kind of maybe expected more. I just wasn't as into this episode, I think. But I did like the B-movie doctor, the B-movie whatever, who has a B-movie monster zoo thing, who was from the tour, being in this episode. I thought that was cool. I liked her. I know some people don't, but I quite like her. The weird morning show thing, I didn't really get where that was going. But I also really like Jonah putting his hand on the thing and making him remember all these like embarrassing memories was like actually really funny. I kind of like the air hockey hairdryer thing, stuff like that, and him having to work on the thing they put the experiments in, I thought was kind of a clever touch. This does seem to try to connect more, which this whole season does, so it's more bingeable, although I can't think of a less bingeable show just based on format, but hey, I guess that's what Netflix wanted. I do like this episode to a certain degree, but it's kind of one I would just have on because I watched other ones. It's not one of my favorites of this run, really. Like, I've only seen 3 of this season, and I'd probably put it as last, to be honest. I get that it does have a good rhythm to it, and I did laugh a lot, but it just didn't feel like as different or like they were making like funny points with it. It just felt like they were just kind of like trying to put as many jokes on top of it, because what you're seeing on the screen isn't like that funny. It's kind of just more like boring bad, and not like Mac and Me and Atlantic Rim, and maybe that's the problem, because I think usually they're better at just boring bad movies. And I don't think they were as good. I did laugh a lot. I guess, I don't know, maybe I'm being nitpicky, but it just felt like much more pop culture references. And I know a lot of people say the riff is almost the most important thing in the episode, and I didn't think the riffs were maybe as original or interesting, although I did feel like their charisma really worked. And if one thing I think in even Joel episodes at the peak of like maybe season 4, season 3 is the peak, or end of season 5, or beginning of season 5, but end of Joel's run, he was like, any of those I'll watch, even if I don't particularly like the episode. So I felt that way with this, which I think speaks highly of what this cast can achieve. And I think also Rob Schraub's direction has really worked well for this season so far. So I think Lords of the Deep is just one you're going to watch within the season and you'll be sort of fine with, but I don't think it's one that's going to elicit, a lot of passion. I don't feel very passionate about this. I feel more like, fine, that was fine, I laughed, it did what it needed to do. But in the time I've taken between this one and those two, I still think about those two and the riffs in them. And this one, like, I'm having trouble, and I just watched it. So I just don't think it made that mark on me the way it did for everyone else. I didn't have the same experience. So I just wasn't something I liked as much. I get that most Pisties quite like this episode, and that's cool. But I'm kind of just sort of like fine with it. And, if you're fine with it, I guess it's a good episode for you. So if you've seen Mystery Science Theater 3000, episode 1203, Lords of the Deep, and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.